Hi, I'm Bill,
And I'm Sherri.
and this is another BS production. And today we're talking about what you need to consider when you're returning to work after your COVID-19 closure. Do you have a plan?
So first of all, what is your mindset? Are you happy to return to work, excited to get back into the business and the workspace, or are you anxious about returning to the workspace?
And we think it's probably a little bit of both. People are probably anxious about getting back out into population, into circulation. People who've been working at the workplace are probably concerned about people bringing stuff in, people coming back to work. Some of you might be happy to get out of your houses and away from your miserable children. Who knows? But no, I'm just
That
kidding.
would not be me.
That wouldn't be Sherri because she loves her children and her dog. Okay, so anyway, we think there's a little bit of both going on. We're just kind of give you little things to think about. If you're an employer, and actually if you're an employee, these are good suggestions you could have for your employer, Okay.
So the reason we put this together is because Bill was doing a little bit of research for a client, trying to figure out what they needed to do in order to open up. And so we just figured we'd share what he found because I know a lot of people are going to have to do that same research.
Yep, and you need to have a plan. And as Ben Franklin says, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, right? So there you go.
Hey, that's like one of your favorite quotes. That's how you read it?
What is?
This quote by Ben Franklin. You say it all the time.
I do say it. Fail to plan to fail. That's what I say. I condense it. Ben was a lot more articulate. He was a man about town. He invented electricity or something like that, or found it in a bottle. Lightning in a bottle. That's the guy right there. All right, moving on, Sherri. Why are we here?
To establish priorities. And so your first priority is the safety of your employees. And I would say also your customers and your vendors. And so you just want to make sure that everybody is safe. You want to create your new work environment so that you're compliant with the new laws and what needs to happen. You want to have your safety guidelines, and that's going to help you mitigate risk and make sure that you're not spreading the coronavirus in your organization so that you can have everybody return to work the next day. And so we recommend that you update your employee handbook with the changes that you make, and then you have procedures and practices and adjust your plan. And the information is changing all of the time. So you really need to make sure that part of your plan is checking for new updates and making sure you're still compliant as time goes on.
Exactly. So guidelines to consider, and this is up to the minute what we pulled from research around the world and around the web, and with our beautiful CDC websites and state websites, etc. We just kind of pulled all this stuff together. So here's stuff for you to think about as you move forward. Requiring the use of what they call PPE. We've got so many little acronyms now that have come along with the coronavirus. And so PPE stands for personal protective equipment. So what kind might you need in your workspace? Think about that. Implementing non-invasive screening of your employees. You might just have a checklist that they have to fill out to say, have I been anywhere? Have I done anything? Have I felt badly? You may take their temperatures. Whatever you decide to collect, remember that that's medical information. So confidentiality kind of reigns there. You need to know what you're required to keep protected. And then finally, requiring 6 feet of social distancing. They feel like 6 feet is what, and they say social, but it's physical, right? Because I'm 6 feet from my computer right now, and I'm socially distant from Sherri, but she's always on my mind, as Willie Nelson would say. So anyway, 6 feet social distancing in your workspace if possible.
And so you also want to continue letting people telework if they're working at home. If they're able to do their jobs from home, that's a great way to have them still have physical distancing, but socially connect. And you want to educate them on hand washing, hygiene, whatever your policies and procedures are. If they can't wash their hands, do you have hand sanitizer available? Is it 60% alcohol? All of that. And you want to limit their exposure to each other. So if you have like conference rooms or break rooms where people usually get together, you just want to make sure that you limit the number of people there so that they can be physically distant from one another.
Yeah, and you may want to close, social gathering areas temporarily to kind of prevent that, or have rules where it's one at a time kind of thing. So, all right. So what else should you consider? Implementing a cleaning and sanitizing schedule. So I have a schedule to touch, especially what they call high touch or common touch points. Restricting travel for your folks if they're in the travel business, or if kind of they're going to see clients or picking things up from places. Think about all those things, especially hotspots. And then limiting your deliveries and visitors, including your customers and clients. So you need to think about those things as you move forward with your business. And then you also need to think about things specific to your workplace, like?
Well, the social distancing we already talked about. Make sure it's sanitary. We said that we'd limit the people in the areas. One-way hallways in bigger office spaces just help people so that they're not crossing each other in the hallway, and that helps them keep their space, their social distance space. And then limiting visitors and access to the site. So if people don't need to be there, you don't need them to come in, like maybe for packages, they can just leave them out front. You can sanitize your mail and bring it in. Then that helps limit your exposure.
Have PPE available for your folks, mask, gloves. You may decide, you may make it optional, you may make it mandatory. It may depend on, your current situation. Designate printers and keyboards to specific employees so you don't have frequently touched surfaces, and don't share office equipment, office staplers, things like that. Try not to share office supplies. Encourage employees to bring their lunch from home so you minimize the amount of deliveries and interaction there. And we talked about hand sanitizing stations and posting your cleaning protocols around the office so people know, for example, in your bathroom, if you leave your break room open, what are my requirements if I use it? If I have a showroom or common space or I'm working with customers, what are my requirements for that?
But we also don't want to encourage employees not to support local restaurants. So if they could have their, deliveries at a certain time, or if they could deliver it to their house and then repackage it. But we certainly are not suggesting that they not support local restaurants.
They could pick it up too. They could drive through. So
yeah, we definitely want to support our community. And so other things are, you might have a work safely committee. And they just would be a committee that comes together and decides how people are going to work safely. It'd be great if you had a whole system committee, people from all different levels in your organization, because then they really can talk about what people need to remain safe, the best way to communicate it to all of the employees, your vendors, and your customers. So you have this common communication, and they'd be able to monitor and adjust and see when things change and what needs to change. And then that will help. And so this work safely committee, just to think about it, one of the things is you want to limit the number of people that you have in closed spaces. So wherever they're meeting, they want to make sure that they're safely meeting as well.
So some things questions to ask yourself about schedules of when you bring your folks back. Can you adjust your business hours of operation to make room for something new? You may do appointments on a Saturday where you never did that before. You may have people work in the evening. Could you stagger your work days? And based upon what people do, can people work from home part of the time and work in the office part of the time? So those are all things to think about. What parts of your business can stay remote, and which need in person? And one of the clients I worked with, they did have customers come in for various meetings to look at products and things. When they decided to bring the customers in, they were limiting the amount of time that the customer would spend there. So what they would do is pre-information that they would have gathered in person before the meeting to make the meeting more efficient and to maximize the shorter amount of time they were going to spend together. And we talked too about working weekends, changing up your schedule to get your hours in, but maybe outside of what your normal 9 to 5, Monday through Friday might look like.
A lot of change there. And you can also look at changing the workspace configuration, right? Where your desks are. Maybe some desks can face the windows or the walls, and you can move them around, and that would give more space for people to both get through to their desk and to have space once they're sitting at their desk. And 6 feet is like the minimum, but it could be more than that.
Yeah, you could repurpose some of your space too, like your break room. You could maybe make that a workspace for somebody if you're not going to use it for breaks. Other questions to ask: what are essential needs for my space? What areas do I have that are underutilized? Are there any superfluous areas that I can remake or reuse? And then we talked about common areas and gathering areas, and how do your employees naturally hang out? You may want to think about maybe using Zoom for kind of a virtual meeting or a virtual break, virtual social hour, social minute, social whatever, in your organization to keep people connected, and to keep that, because I think one of the things that people miss most about working from home is the social aspect of their jobs. So think about that. Sherri, I can't hear you.
One of the things that people miss is working in the office.
Yes, with other people, away from their family. Yeah.
So workspace questions to ask is, how are we going to have people, still have, like Bill was just talking about, those relationships, why we're minimizing the exposure to each other. And so we might even do another webinar on that. The breaks, the standards, what time do people need? And are there easy ways to improve the spaces so that they have less people in them, and then you won't have as much of a contagious environment? And why are the spaces cleaned? How can they be improved? So what are you going to be able to do when you're cleaning the spaces? And so I know a lot of people will sign up just to do some quick cleaning of wiping down doorknobs and the light switches and the shared spaces, because it'll make everyone feel safer.
Yeah, and if you have a cleaning crew, you want to, let's say you have a third party that cleans your space, you probably want to make sure you communicate with them about what your expectations are and how they've changed. Make sure you use an EPA-approved disinfectant. You can go on the CDC site, and they talk about things that are chlorine-based and alcohol-based and how they work to protect your space. Increase the frequency of your deep cleanings. Focus on your high-touch surfaces. And some of those high-touch surfaces would be tables, doorknobs, light switches. We gave you a list here for things to think about. You may have others in your space, but those are the things you want to make sure you hit on a regular basis, frequent basis.
And it'd be good to ask the employees, like, what are the high touch areas, and have them think about it and brainstorm it, because that'll just increase the number of items on your list. And then everybody will keep in mind that all of those need to be wiped down.
I just saw a report yesterday that said that most people who get the coronavirus get it at home. And the reason they get it at home is because somebody comes in contaminated, and that's where you touch the most stuff, is in your house. So it's most likely you would miss something there. So think about this for your own place, right? Your own personal space. But they said that that's even more than workspaces, people's homes are where they're picking it up, because they're bringing it in and not going behind themselves to clean it up.
And the article from the CDC this morning that you should still wipe everything down, but it's mostly spread person to person. So
Yes.
the distancing and the mask are going to be important.
Okay,
great considerations.
So what to think about?
So I would think about, how do your employees feel? Like, do they feel safe coming back in? Do they have any childcare issues or parent care issues? Or is there a reason why they're not able to come back in the office? Can they work from home? Are you prepared to do assessments and talk to them about what they need? And are you up to date on the laws? They created this Family First Coronavirus Recovery Act. And so you need to know what it says and what you need to do as a business to help your employees. And there's also the ADA. And so you want to make sure the Americans with Disability Act, that you're compliant with that. So you want to be really mindful of each employee and what they're telling you. And this is a great time to have communication with your employees. Ask them if they're comfortable. If they're not comfortable, have discussions about it, and then talk to your counsel and your HR staff and find out what's the best possible solution between you and your employees, and how do you have it be both fair and safe.
Right. And times you may want to think about saying, please don't come to work, right? If you've had, if you've been infected in the last 30 days, I've seen 14, some places 30 others. So you guys set your own policy with that. If you have a fever, or you have other symptoms, and those symptoms are all outlined on the CDC website. And generally, if somebody's sick, no matter what they have, you probably don't want them at work. They're not that effective. And if it's contagious, you certainly don't want anybody to get it.
But just because they're sick doesn't mean they have the coronavirus either. So you need to make sure that your policies take that.
I mean, if they're sick, they're sick. I mean, people get sick all the time, not just from the coronavirus. So I'm certain everybody's got policies about that already. You just have to take an extra step to think through it. If possible, offer remote digital services to your customers, like curbside pickup and how your deliveries are picked up. So you can limit contact with outside parties. And then thinking about your employees, or do you have employees that are high risk? And this is where I think probably ADA and the new Family First Act comes into play. So you have to kind of understand how all that works.
And it might also be if they have a family member that's high risk.
Yeah, like me, I'm high risk. I'm a high reward too. So there you have it. So
hand washing policy, that's super fun, right?
Yes.
So you just want to have signs up for your staff. If you have a hand washing station, that would be great. So you just want to tell them, you're washing your hands for 20 seconds. You probably want to tell them additional times to wash their hands. If you have pets in the office, if you're allowing people to bring their pets to work, maybe you want them to wash their hands after they handle the pets, in and out of the restrooms, after they blow their nose or cough. So you just want to have little signs posted for when you want people to wash their hands, and you want to make sure that either you have a hand washing station or you have another avenue for them. They could use hand sanitizer or sanitizing wipes, which isn't as good as hand washing, but certainly better than nothing. And so you just want to make sure that that's 60% alcohol.
Yep, and you can feel free to cut and paste from this presentation. We'll have it available for you, and put this into your signage.
And you could probably download little placards and things for hand washing if you just do a search. I bet there's a lot of them out there.
There's tons out there. So visitors consideration, posting signs at your entrance, telling people if they feel sick to stay home. Signage inside your physical space for your customers, reminding them to keep their distance. You could mark the floors or the areas, so they know where to stand. You're having PPE available for your employees and maybe even your customers if it fits. And I've even seen the plexiglass setups at checkout areas, and places where you got high customer face-to-face contact. So
I don't know about that though. They have the plexiglass at the grocery store, but then the person's already touching everything that you're bringing home.
Yeah, but they're not breathing on you, so there you have it.
They have a mask.
I don't, maybe it's belts and suspenders, Sherri, belts and suspenders.
From us. Hopefully that's what it's for.
Yeah. So other things to think about when you have people visiting: have your hand sanitizer and wipes available. Limit the capacity of your guests within the store. How many can you handle? Maybe they have to make appointments. Limiting contact again with people, third parties, and then have a procedure to disinfect after people leave your space, right? And when packages and other things enter your space.
And if you want to do anything like have people wear masks or different things, that's when you want to seek your legal counsel and make sure that you're implementing those policies correctly and that you're able to do that. because what you can do with your employees is a little different than what you can do with your visitors and your guests.
Yep. And so increasing your security measures, some people are keeping track and logging in people who visit. If you're in a smaller business and you have less traffic, it may make sense to do that, especially if, God forbid, you have some sort of outbreak. You know who to track, how to track and trace people who might have been exposed or exposed to you. So just another thing also to talk with your HR and legal folks about. And we think that you should. There's a lot of things to be in compliance with. You always had OSHA, and you always had the National Labor Relations Act. We've always had Americans with disabilities that we've had to deal with, and family medical leave, but now you've got the Family First Coronavirus Response Act to deal with. And you just have to be cognizant of how all these things play and the potential for discrimination or harassment relating to any protected classes. So you need to take time to really understand what you're implementing.
And since we're not experts, we're not giving you legal advice. We're just telling you what we found doing the research. So you should take these suggestions and really talk to your HR person. If you don't have an HR staff, there's a lot of companies that offer HR outsourcing that might be able to help you, or I would talk to your legal staff, but definitely get advice from an expert. We just want to let you know the types of things that you need to consider and where you might need to get advice and where you already have in-house experts.
So to recap, have a plan, right? Consider reorganizing your workspace, protecting your employees on site and looking out for their well-being overall, whether they're in your office or at home. Consider the needs of each one of your team members because they could be unique. They could be unique with respect to they have children they have to take care of, do they have people that in their household that are more at risk, are they personally at risk? So all those things to consider. Managing your space and your customer contact points, managing your contact with vendors and third parties, and above all, communicating with everybody, all your constituents about what you're doing and resetting expectations about how to do business going forward.
And that might be a positive thing that happens from this whole experience, because communicating with everybody about what the expectations are and resetting expectations will always help your businesses be more effective, because then everybody knows what to expect. So that part I think is great. And I know this isn't the most exciting information, but hopefully it helped you if it's something that you have to do right now, because all of us are having to create some change, do things a little bit differently to make sure that everyone stays safe and healthy and that we're all able to continue working.
Right, so it's a little painful, it can be. I mean, if you think about the changes we went through after 9/11, everybody's kind of acclimated to what they have to do to ride a plane today versus what they did before that. I think we're kind of going to be in the same boat with how we're managing this crisis. You know, behaviors will change and they'll become the new normal. What's that, Sherri?
Cleaner society. Everything will be cleaner.
Yeah,
All the time.
I like it. Healthier people leads to healthier lives and longer ones, hopefully, right?
Yeah.
So visit us on our website, positiveimpactforce.com. Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and buy our book, The Earn Method. You can get that at, fabulous booksellers everywhere, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Lulu. If you go to our website, there's a link to it. It's not expensive, and it's just full of all of Sherri's pearls of wisdom. So, I mean, we should have charged 5 times what the cover price is just for that. So.
And we hope you found this information valuable. If there's information that you want us to cover or something that you'd like us to do, you can email me at sherri@positiveimpactforce.com, or you can email Bill at positiveimpactforce.com. And so we will see you next time.
Thank you so much.